The long walk to stage.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think we got the wrong people because you guys are both too young to be running a 9-figure brand.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so lots of fear in running that big of a company. Why don't you guys just tell us about yourself, your experience of career arc, how you got there?
Yeah,
Cozy.
for sure. So I started at Cozy Earth, I think it's been 7 years. It was 2018. We had like 3 employees. I started in customer support. I was interested in marketing, and I asked the founder, I said, hey, like if I do customer support, can I also help with marketing? And he's like, yeah, sure, I need help with that. And I was a warm body, and he just let me kind of handle some of the projects we had. And at the time, we were like primarily, like most of our revenue was just coming from trade shows, and we were really small. So there wasn't a lot of need on the marketing side, and then over time, that grew and grew, and so did my responsibilities, and just so happened to be at the right place at the right time. COVID happened, that helped us. We blew up, and they haven't found a reason to replace me yet. So yes, we are too young. We've made a lot of mistakes, but luckily our founder has forgiven us and let us stay in our roles. So anyway.
Yeah. For me, so I met George in college at UVU, having no experience doing anything, and he had just moved over from customer service at Cozy Earth to being like the first marketing guy. And so he just called me up and said, hey, do you want to come work here and basically figure out how to do influencer marketing? I had no experience doing it. And so that's kind of like how I got introduced to the company. And literally soon after we started, it was within that first year, Cozy Earth just started to blow up. And so, yeah, I'd say we got pretty lucky, but George is probably too humble to admit there's a lot of things that we've done that he's probably been behind and the reason that we've grown to who we are. So I'm excited to be up here.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, McCoy.
Good compliments. I like that. Must be like raise month.
Yeah,
right?
for
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
It's definitely just brown nosing.
Got it.
He doesn't mean that.
Could get that plug in there.
That's right.
So you guys talked about growing super, super fast. Both mentioned COVID. Both mentioned just that it was kind of a rapid arc. What do you guys think were the tentpole reasons for that growth, right? There's a lot of brands in this room and at Accelerate that are trying to figure out basically how to map their strategy and growth off of what you guys have done, especially from like a direct consumer, Shopify experience. What do you guys think those kind of core tentpoles were to the success?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of hit on it already indirectly, but we had really low OpEx. I was making $14 an hour. I think we hired McCoy. I'm going to disclose it. I hope that's okay. I think we hired him at like $36,000. We weren't paying people a lot of money, and that's a huge lever point for us. Like I think every brand needs a lever point, whether that's like super strong gross margin, low OpEx. Ours, in my opinion, was a combination of those things. I think we had a really, really strong product and strong LTV. That said, though, I think the lever point for us for the first few years and why we were able to make the run we did was because we had relatively low OpEx compared to our competitors.
Really, really good insight. I like that idea of every brand has to have a lever point. It doesn't have to be the same one, but if you don't have one, probably going to be hard to find that rocket ship growth, right?
Yes, exactly.
Anything to add?
I'm biased. Like I said, I came in doing influencer marketing, but that was one of the first like real marketing channels that we tried jumping into. And like you said, it's 90% the product that you're promoting through influencers, and it just took off. Like to a point that I would say like we were trending with social media just because of these influencers and the impact that they were having. And this is at the point where influencer marketing was still new. A lot of companies weren't doing it or hadn't quite figured out how to do it. And so we got in at the right time. COVID hit, and obviously as a home product, that's just like goes together perfectly. So
love it. So now you guys have expanded. I mean, you both have talked about kind of the core home product sheets. You now have expanded into a lot of other categories. Maybe you're wearing some of them. I would hope,
Yes,
right?
I'm wearing all Cozy Earth.
You have to.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I would love to be.
Yeah.
Maybe after this, right? They were giving me crap because I wasn't wearing any Cozy Earth.
Yeah.
I said I would lie and say this shirt was Cozy Earth, though, right? That's what we agreed on. It's
Yeah.
not. He felt it. What I was going to ask is basically, how do you balance that core offering, which is probably driving the majority of revenue, against some of the kind of new innovative products that you want to release, the appetite for that? You know, how do you budget for that? How does that not become like an OpEx bomb, essentially, right?
Yep.
Like on the P&L when the core business is going so well?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is something that a lot of brands struggle. We still struggle with it. Trying to figure out the appropriate amount of resources to allocate to launches is tough. I think the way I look at it is like when the business is healthy and the core business is doing really well, we need to invest in expanding our product offering and getting those products off the ground and spending dollars on marketing. So that way we can grow as a business. Otherwise, we wouldn't grow. Luckily for us, like our founder was ahead of the curve. I think a lot of e-commerce first companies now are saying like, oh crap, like we need to launch a lot of products in order to continue growing. And for us, like we got Oprah's Favorite Things in 2018, which was like a huge lever point.
Yep.
And then the next year she was like, can you guys make pajamas? And we're like, probably, yeah, sure. So then we start making pajamas. And so we were forced to do it.
Sure, Oprah.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to tell her no. So we threw some pajamas together. And they actually are amazing if you've tried them. And you know, then we did loungewear the next year for her. And we just continued growing our product offering. And unfortunately for everyone in this room, a lot of it's timing. Like there are times in our industry where it's easy to scale and easy to grow. And there are times when it's not. And luckily, like, we got into these product categories when it was still easy to scale. I've seen a lot of companies, you know, that I've talked to, and they're like, I just haven't been able to get this new product category to take off. And I'm like, honestly, like, I don't know if you can. There's not a great answer when just the timing's off and the economics around the brands are not working. You can't go in and invest a lot of additional dollars into scaling new products. Anyway.
Yeah, love that. Why don't we jump into a bunch of kind of marketing stuff and talk about that? I'm sure that we're going to try to save a ton of time for Q&A because I know a lot of people are wanting to probably hear specific answers to their questions around tactics. I think one of the things that impresses me about your guys' brand is you have a really strong marketing mix and you have a lot of, I would say, novel approach in how you're spending money, how you're measuring. You know, Mckoy, you already mentioned like pretty big influencer budget. You're doing Oprah stuff. Like brands are probably thinking, geez, that's probably a lot of money. They're putting that, you know, together. How are you guys like doing a full year plan and like trying to create a marketing mix at the beginning? Kind of what's the general start to that approach?
Yeah, currently it's a 30-day rolling. So like we meet at the beginning of each month and we assign budget based on prior month's performance. It's like, it is probably the best process. There's an overall budget determined at the beginning of the year, like here's how much we think we'll spend on marketing if we hit forecast. Haley Knapp's in the front row here, she owns that. But we basically forecast out, okay, here's what we think is gonna happen on the retention front. That's like something we can forecast and count on. How much contribution margin is gonna come from those repeat cohorts? Okay, how much of that contribution margin do we wanna spend on marketing? And then that's how we determine our marketing budget for the year. And then month to month, we use prior month's performance to determine budget allocation based on like incrementality of the channels. And we're trying to get scores for every single channel. So that process has evolved. It's currently still evolving. It's better than it's ever been for us, but we're looking to add some technology vendors to help us with media mix modeling.
So Mckoy, since you kind of run like a spend department inside of that, is the process for your team to try to showcase to George why influencer is performing well, or is it just pure math? Is there some kind of like creative skill internally to kind of work some of those budgets, especially with influencer, because it's hard to pin an exact number on it, right? Like it tends to kind of be ranged. You don't know what one influencer is going to cost necessarily. Like you can hope what they will cost, but they could come back with a different price, right?
Yeah. So a lot of it is like negotiating one with influencers and kind of having an idea of what that cost looks like. But it's literally like gambling. Like you literally go out there and you're spending $10,000 to $50,000 on an influencer and hoping you can make that return. And like for us, a lot of that is direct conversion. Like we're trying to have the influencers promote product, but also codes. And every week, every month, it's like, I'm given this X amount of money. And so far, it's worked out pretty well for Cozy Earth. But like George said, we sit in these meetings and we discuss within like our different departments and podcasts and influencer, and efficiency changes quite a bit. And obviously with influencers, you have to determine the contract and everything, and that's all finalized literally like 30 days ago. So if they're like, hey, we're gonna actually drop $100,000 from what we originally were gonna do, it's hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would, like you said, it's just, it's all about knowing the influencers and roughly what you think that they should cost. Luckily, we have a little bit of a formula of what we think and of how that works, so.
What do you guys think drives like that variance in channels, right? Like I think it's interesting you guys say that, because sometimes we have clients that are like very large brands, like holding company, publicly traded brands, and they like do not approach it that way at all, right? They're like planning in October of the previous year, and like whatever they decide at that point basically is what's going to happen the following year. And so there's a ton of like rigidity in these budget categories. And you guys just mentioned like, well, every month, like Facebook may be outperforming influencer or vice versa. I don't know, any advice on like how you guys think about that, or how you maintain like a nimble environment? Because it probably is a little bit of a tax on the team.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a tax. I think there's some channels where it's harder. Mckoy just hit on it. Influencer, you got to lock it in like 30 days in advance. Some of our other traditional channels are the same. Meta, Google, very fluid. We can make changes in real time. So I think we understand like, okay, there's some channels where like when we set it, maybe we're 6 months out, we're going to stick to that budget. Other channels, we get into the month, and depending on performance, we're going to flex up and down depending. So I think what you just described with these big corporations is a blessing and a curse. Like they can afford to do that and not go out of business. Like a lot of e-commerce companies, they cannot afford to commit a year in advance to a dollar number. Like we have to be able to pivot quickly, and I think the digital channels make that easy. As you introduce more traditional marketing channels / influencer where other people or companies are involved, you have to stick to a number to some degree.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of those traditional marketing channels, because I know you don't do a ton of it, but more than maybe a lot of the brands in the room, out of home, billboard, maybe even like some of the people that are local here have seen, Jazz partnership, things like that. Do you want to just like speak, how do you go do those deals? How do you measure them? Are they interesting, or is it kind of just for fun? Like,
that's a great question. If I'm being totally honest with you, we have one person on our team, Colby, who maybe many of you know. He likes billboards, and
I like looking at them.
Yeah, they're fun. Everyone sees them. You talk to people in Utah, they're like, oh, I know what Cozy Earth is. I've seen the billboards. I think that sounds really lazy. That's not totally why we do it. There's some areas where we're looking to expand into retail, and we think billboards make sense there to try to build brand awareness as we do begin to open up stores. And we do measure this impact of billboards. We'll pick a similar DMA, like purchasing behavior in this DMA versus this DMA, and then we'll watch, okay, what happened in Utah versus Denver versus 3 other DMA, and then we'll measure performance that way. But it is relatively difficult to measure, and it's a kind of a question mark. Every month when we go through budget, it's like, okay, what do we actually think billboard's driving? I can tell you it's really cheap CPMs. I do think like the top of funnel approach for that channel, it is a relatively strong channel for that. But it's not in any way a big part of what we do. Like, not at all. Very small budget or percentage of our overall.
Yeah. We have seen some brands like use it successfully with like, maybe they're trying to break into certain large cities or like certain demographics that they think are kind of niched down. Or because you guys will also do like kind of some pop-up shop type stuff. They'll like buy billboard or out of home like before that event. But again, like very, very difficult to say that any of that makes money, but I do think you're right. It's like the top of funnel is pretty cheap.
Yeah, I think what's interesting for us is like we've kind of pulled a lot of the levers you can pull. Like we've spent a lot of money on Meta, we've spent a lot of money on Google, and like you hit a point where you're like, okay, where else can we go? We can go to this channel. There's no scale there, right? Like influencer, radio, podcast, great channels, but there is limited scale. So Billboard's interesting, not to harp too hard on Billboard, but like Billboard's interesting because if it does work, there's a lot of scale. And so that's why it's worth the investment for us to even test it, because, okay, if it works in Utah and we can prove it works, and then we do that test 3 more times, like we can go into every major city in the country and have, potentially a large impact on what we're doing. Whereas like a lot of these other channels, it's like best case, you're, increasing revenue by $1 million. Yeah.
So let's talk about, it's like literally the inverse, that we're going from billboards to what is the future. I guess like with media buying, with creative, AI, there's a lot changing right now. I mean, even if I look at our team structure, just within like the topic of media buying and creative, it just requires a lot less people. Mm-hmm. The platforms are actually a lot more sophisticated at optimizing for the outcome that you would want. I mean, like anyone who's run TikTok GMV Max, it's kind of insane. We've tried to outperform it like with a lot of dollars, and we kind of can't. You kind of have to tune it up, right? But it's crazy. Like it's quite a bit more efficient than you can be trying to run your own stuff. Where do you guys see that heading? Is that going to change for every brand? Do you think it's kind of the winners keep winning type situation, or does it allow for, maybe like another kind of COVID-esque like opening, like you were mentioning?
It's a great question. I actually was in Los Angeles on Monday meeting with Meta, and it was a couple of their relatively high up executives and then like 10 operators. And she was talking about this exact subject and how should we structure our teams as the technology advances, and is it in the next year going to be all replaced by AI, where there is no need for media buyers? And maybe this is scaring some people in the room, but she actually said no, that's not the direction. Scared. I know, we should all be scared, honestly. But I think the takeaway for me from that meeting was like, there's going to continue to be automation, and it's going to be much easier and quicker to manage. But like, I think that's they at least right now, it's not in the 2-year roadmap to completely automate media buying. But they are going to enhance it. They're going to make creative production easier. They're going to make, force you to build campaigns a certain way that make, the human element of it less meaningful. So, I mean, there will be changes and it will become more automated, but it's not like completely automated in 12 months.
I mean, the experience I've seen too with some of the AI softwares like Influencer, for example, like I just got done talking to a company this week about how they're about to roll it out, where it'll handle the outreach and the email flow, which is like 90% of the work. So in some cases, like it is here, in other cases, maybe not.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a lot like COVID. You just got to figure out how to adapt and be ready for it before it hits. And so hopefully we're ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been our team's obviously spending a lot of time thinking about it. And I think I think it will empower like A players to be the best they've ever been, right? Potentially it exposes people that are not leaning into those tools and educating themselves, but it's still early. Like everyone can get ahead of it now. Like you're saying, like Meta's even coming out telling you like, hey, it's probably, a couple years away. You got, everyone's like seeing the AI videos. For sure they're not as good yet, but like elements can be. So I think the cost of content is going to come way, way down.
Yep.
Which you guys spend a lot of dollars on producing, very beautiful high-end content for advertising. And I have to imagine you guys are excited about, AI content maybe improving some of those costs and driving OpEx down.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you could argue that, access to high-end creative is kind of a differentiator. And now like that playing field is going to be leveled. And so like, I don't know, it's both good and bad. Like it will lower OpEx, but now every single brand that's trying to knock you off can produce the same level of creative. And so I don't know, I look at it from that. I think it's going to help us in some ways. It's going to hurt us in some ways, but we've just got to figure out how to maximize the impact.
Love it. All right, so anyone who's, followed your brand for a while knows that you guys do promotions. How do you guys handle it?
Yeah, so right now, this is currently being changed, but right now it's based on inventory count. So if an item has over X amount of days of inventory, it's discounted. If not, it's not on discount. And then if we have like excess inventory, it's on a even higher discount. So it's kind of an interesting strategy. We've done it for years. Like the thinking around it has been like, we spend all this money to send new traffic to our website every day. Like we need to give them a reason to purchase. And we actually ran some testing earlier this year because we've always assumed that the discount helps. We weren't ever 100% sure. And we ran the test, and it was about a 35% lift in conversion rate to have the discount on versus not on, which that's a big number for us. And so that was an interesting learning. Now, that said, like sitting in the seat, if I could go back in time, would I change our approach slightly? Probably. But I think the impact of discounting is real. We do run a lot of promotions. I think you've seen a lot of brands in 2020, 2021, when things were good, they're like, we will never discount. We are like a premium brand and we will not do it. And now you look at the
Had lots of
websites,
those conversations.
every single brand is discounting, and it's like, it's out of necessity. I don't know if it's good or bad, I can't say that, but I do know that it helps lift conversion rate on site. So do with that what you will.
So in terms of like strategy, Mckoy, on the promotions, how does it work? Like, are you having the creators promote the same thing that is on promotion on the D2C site? Like, what's kind of like the pathway for the content creation there?
So our influencer promotion hasn't really ever had to change. It's always more aggressive than what our site is offering, just to give the influencers that leverage. Especially if you're trying to build an affiliate program, you want to be able to give them as much advantage as you can. But also, like our aggressive discounts come as like a flash sale. So we're really heavy on Instagram stories. I think just from the last panel, the influencers there were saying they're also mainly on Instagram stories, even though TikTok and TikTok Shop is big. And that's where we see most of our success. So these flash sales usually last the 24 hours that you can see them. And we've seen a lot of success doing it that way. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I think that's something a lot of brands don't do, and that's a really good insight, which is give the influencer the edge. I would say only 10% of my clients do that, right? It's like, because they're like, well, it's contribution margin, it's going to be eroding, and it's like, well, all your sales are not going to come from the creator, but it's how do you get them to work with you consistently is the game if they convert. And that's one way that they'll stay, right? Is that you're giving them that little edge with an offer.
And there are pros and cons. Like with these aggressive discounts, they leak. Like that is my biggest issue that I face, and a lot of brands talk about the same problem. So there's like, softwares out there, like one that recently came out was Viper, and that helps with like extension cookies to avoid it landing on like Capital One or Honey. And it's helped a little bit, but it's an ever-going process, and we are constantly policing these codes. They end up everywhere. So.
Did they pay you for that?
Yeah. Are they in the room? How much does your software cost? So on that point, are you just rinsing codes at a high frequency? Like, what's your approach?
So I mean, it's hard because it's like a lot of these influencers, they like their code to be something specific.
Yeah, it's like I just want my first name.
Yeah,
that is really easy to leak. April.
Yeah, so if anything, like we'll try and go and just like expire the codes after the promotion's over and then go back live. And to be honest, like sometimes we don't even do that. Like as long as it's just mentioned, a lot of the followers just believe the influencers, and if it becomes an issue, then we do expire them and we have to handle them. But where we're so large with these influencer collaborations, there's just so many to handle.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we try to do some automation for that, just a plug for us. So all that promotion, and we've kind of talked about the marketing spend, promo. That requires a pretty deep partnership with finance, I'm imagining. Like like the planning. I'm thinking about our CFO and like the constant conversations around, are we actually making money doing that?
Yeah.
Like, or what, is this working? How does that go? Is it like a lot of selling, or is it like a super good partnership?
No.
I mean, I
You
know
know,
Tanner, he's a
terrible.
good guy.
Yeah, he's
but-
friends with our CFO. So, he came in after we were already doing it that way. So there's been conversations where it's like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, can we stop doing it? And then we run a test, and it's like, hey, it's a 35% hit. All of a sudden, the finance guy doesn't want to turn the discount off, right? Like, so I think you have to test into it and validate that it's actually driving something in the business. You don't just discount because you like doing discounts. Like, we've proven that out to him that, like, hey, this is the impact. We can turn it off, but here are the implications. It's actually not a net positive to our contribution margin. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like, why did revenue go down? Well, we did stop the thing that was
Remember
working.
when you asked us to turn the discounts
Turn that
off?
back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is contribution margin down?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun loop that happens every 30 days. All right, so like on content, let's drill in a little bit more on that, and then we'll try to do some Q&A with everyone that's here. Like we mentioned this earlier, you guys do a lot of, I would call it like aspirational content. It's very beautiful, like perfect aesthetics, everyone's dream house, dream bedroom. How do you guys balance making content like that maybe it's like, hopefully it converts, but it's not necessarily going to, with maybe call it like UGC influencer content or more like performance content?
Yeah.
What's kind of the battle on that?
Fun question, and there's a lot to unpack here. So for a long time, so we had an in-house creative team for a long time, and we did all of our shoots, and they were focused on doing like product photography, lifestyle photography, but then it's hard to get them to do the stuff that drives the business, which is the meta ads that are maybe less pretty, that you're on the street doing interviews, you're doing things that they didn't envision doing when they got the job. And so that's always been a little bit of a tug of war. We actually restructured earlier this year and allocated like all of our videographers and just said, hey, all we're doing is meta creative. And you are now the growth creative team. You're not the creative team, and you're just pumping out ads. And like, we have more than 4x, 5x our volume for Meta, and that's like, if you talk to Meta, that is the driver of performance today, is diversifying your creative and coming at it and like making creative that's going to work for that channel. And so we had to prioritize that earlier this year, and it's still like a work in progress, but I do feel good about the direction. And I think you need dedicated people where they know all you're doing is building creative for Meta. You're not involved in anything else. So I've seen, as you talk to other successful brands, they all kind of have that same structure where they have a growth creative unit that just does Meta creative.
Yeah, and then obviously with UGC versus like direct co-promotion, I don't know if there's like if I have like a percent of what amount goes to what. A lot of my time goes toward promotion of code, like, because it works so well, we drive so much revenue. And then we also try to work with these same influencers to have them basically make the same piece of content, but without a code. And then we use that for UGC and brand and partnerships, which I think everyone here would already know at this point. Like, that's the way to drive a really successful meta campaign is with UGC or with whitelisting access. So
Yeah.
I think that's another part of it too.
So what gives you confidence, I guess, like you've worked with a ton of creators. Is there, without sharing like the full secret sauce, I guess, is there kind of like math that you're running to give you confidence on a new influencer partnership? Like, is that the approach? Is it kind of like a CPM calculation? A lot of brands here have probably done some deals that didn't turn out, or like 1 out of 10 is turning out. You mentioned, you called it gambling, which I like. Like, what's I don't know, like any insight there on
I'm a really good gambler.
how to get confident?
No. I think like with paid creators, there is like more math involved where before you've decided that you're going to collab, you got to determine what their story impressions looks like. Their engagement rate is really big. There are a lot of creators that go both ways. Some that are really successful and make a huge impact, and others that they're fake. They have fake followers. And so I think it's not too hard to understand which one's which. But authenticity is like the key word that we look for. There's no number to that. You just got to be able to know influencers well and know which ones, can be given a content brief, but make it their own. And that's really, at the end of the day, how I gamble, or how we gamble. So.
Yeah. Well, the Rainmaker, I'll bring you to Vegas. Sounds good.
I would not recommend it. He was in tears last time we went to Vegas. So.
Too much, man. Too much.
We have
Bring it
weekly
up.
poker rinks with me and George, and let's just say I'm up on George. So.
Disagree. Anyway.
So how did you get comfortable? So like he's running that math.
Yeah. I mean, there is a math formula, and I think overall the performance of the channel is relatively strong, so we can afford to take swings and miss.
Yeah.
There's a balance, so the way we approach it is okay, we have a core group of influencers that we know work, and then we have test influencers that we do not know. And so we know if we balance the budget ratio, X% core, X% test,
That makes sense.
we should hit our target efficiency on the channel. So that's the formula.
Okay.
You gave it away.
I gave it away.
Well, it's like not too much,
Yeah.
We'll give some time for Q&A. Just one final one. What's next for Cozy Earth? Like, what should we be looking out for? What should we get excited about? What should we, start saving our money for? It's kind of expensive.
All of the above. If you haven't tried our sheets or our pajamas, you need to try those. We call those the gateway drug. And then we
Drugs and gambling?
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of a crazy company.
We're young
Degenerates.
too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens when you get young. Anyway, so what are we excited about? We actually kind of revamped our product team. We hired someone from Nike. He'd been there for a long time. We worked at Ralph Lauren, and then he's come on. He's doing a really good job. We launched 98 products last year, doing something similar this year. I don't know if there's one product I could pick that you guys should come by, but I think what we're doing is we're building products that appeal to a much larger audience than just our core audience that we built. So for everyone in the room, there is something for you at Cozy Earth.
Everyone sleeps.
Yep, that's true.
I'm like 10 sets of sheets deep, so you don't need a pitch
That's
from
what
me.
I'm talking about.
All right, well, let's flip to Q&A, and I think there's going to be a couple mics out somewhere. Yep, cool. We got one hand here, right? Are you just saying hi? What's up?
So just your last comment is interesting, launching a lot of products, but not necessarily to your kind of core audience. Like, how do you I guess, figure out how far your brand equity will extend without alienating that core customer as you expand into, you're trying to grow, you're launching new products, they're kind of outside of your core. How do you figure out how far that brand equity will extend?
Yeah, that is such a good question, honestly. And that is something that is oftentimes debated at our office. Like, can we come out with a polo? We started as a bedsheet company. Does that make sense to the consumer? And I think the answer to your question is our current strategy is just come out with it and see if it works. And sometimes we miss, sometimes we hit, and sometimes the consumer trusts us to make a polo and a pant. Sometimes they're like, what in the world are you doing? And I think what it comes down, from my perspective, though, is like, are we making a superior product to what's in the market? And if we are, I think we can make it work. If not, then we shouldn't waste our time. But there's a lot more to unpack there, and it's something we're working on, and we're trying to kind of refine the brand vision because we don't want it to be muddied. We don't want the consumer to look at our site and say, like, what the heck is this company? So we're trying to refine that. We actually are engaged with like a big branding agency right now, and they're working through what the roadmap should be for the next 3 years. So that said, I do feel like sometimes brands are like, ooh, we can't do it. The customer won't trust us to do it. And it's like, maybe you're making that up because you're looking at the brand every day and you work for the brand. Maybe you should take a swing and just see if the consumer trusts you to do it. And maybe they don't. Maybe they do, though, and you have another winner on your hands. So that's our approach right now. I'm not saying it's a perfect approach, but I think we've been comfortable taking swings, and then if we have to retract and reduce our product count, we will.
You guys do have a great customer list, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you look at your core audience, it's pretty wide. Mm-hmm. So I have to imagine, like, sending email drip, text on a new product with an offer, you probably get a pretty quick read on, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is going to get us a little bit of traction.
Exactly, exactly. They're pretty quick, or the review's good. Do we have the, are we hitting the sales volume number we want? And then it's like, okay, we can lean into this product, put it on reorder, and it's there to stay. But yeah, it's a really good question. It's fun
Love
to
it.
think about.
Are you guys on TikTok Shop?
Yeah. Yes.
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 Are you on TikTok Shop? I'm supposed to restate the question if he doesn't have a mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we are. It's not a huge thing for us. Now that said, like I said, I went and met with Meta this week, and there were 10 brands in the room, all pretty big brands, and they all were talking about how TikTok Shops is just crushing for them, and they had kind of an interesting strategy. I'll share it. But they will go find the TikTok Shop affiliates, and they'll find whoever is driving tons and tons of volume, and they'll work out a deal with that person, and likely it'll be unprofitable. And Trig, this is his expertise. I should let him talk about it. But likely it'll be unprofitable, but then they will, because they got the big one to do it, all of the other affiliates will now opt into selling their products, and then they've seen pretty big scale. We unfortunately haven't seen a ton of success with it, but I know there's brands out there just crushing.
Yeah, I think it's what I would add is obviously expensive products, a little bit harder. It's not achievable, but what you mentioned is really important. You probably have to be willing to operate it as a new customer acquisition channel and not pure play profitability channel, because you will have to discount, you will have to run high commission. I think the other challenge that Cozy has is that they have such a strong, mature D2C affiliate program with a lot of creators and codes in market. And so the user behavior that we've seen with Cozy is a lot of those people may see it on TikTok and they're like, what's the flash sale right now? And it's they're gone, right? TikTok's not gonna get any credit for that per se, right? And so George and I have talked a lot about media mix models and how you could probably capture some of that. And I think that's probably the future for brands that are in a category where either price point or audience type may not be as good of a fit for TikTok today. I do think TikTok is probably gonna figure out other categories. I would say this one is not, no, it's not like anyone's crushing in this space unless the product's really cheap comparatively.
We're seeing obvious knockoffs. So what are you doing?
Have you seen obvious knockoffs, and what are you doing about it?
Yeah, yes, for sure. I'm laughing because Ann Caller over there, they always talk about this brand called Cozy Bliss, which is a knockoff. And they say that's their favorite brand.
Sounds nice.
Does sound nice. Anyway, so yeah, lots of knockoffs. I think it's interesting because earlier in my career, earlier days of Cozy Earth, they would really bother me, and I'd be like, what are we gonna do about it? Can we? But at the end of the day, I think it's easy to let that be a distraction, and you really can't do a lot about it unless they're clearly violating your trademark or something. So I think yes, the answer is yes, but we aren't doing a whole lot about it. I don't know if there is a lot we can do about it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's hard definitely if it's D2C. I feel like if it's Amazon or if it is TikTok, I think working with your rep specifically and trying to get a better relationship with the platform can help. If you can email someone and be like, hey, I think this brand, something's going on. I think they're using trademark or something squirrely is going on, then it can kind of be flagged and escalated. We have seen that work at TikTok specifically. To your point, it's not like they can destroy the brand, but
Yeah.
they can potentially suppress it if there's some, issue like that.
I think too, white sheets have been around before we were even here. So it's people have been selling cheap bedding before we started. And so our leverage is just we come out with super, really nice product. That's what we try and hit on with everything that we come out with. So yeah, it's there. It's probably hitting other brands harder than us, but I think that's what we fall back on, even crediting our marketing skills. It's the product at the end of the day that's selling itself. So
Yeah, I will say we do that. We've ordered product and we're let's just make sure this isn't good. We will order products from these knockoffs and be okay, we still have our moat, which is our product. And if someone wants to buy Cozy Bliss, Mark, then they can. But they are going to get an inferior product. So.
But it was $200 cheaper.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions?
Yeah, I wanted to build on your comment saying that we've kind of tried all the channels at this point, which I think is super interesting to think about in terms of like where you go in the future, and also kind of digesting what we've heard at this conference of what's coming with AI. And you kind of hear like what you heard at Meta, like things are going to be more automated, more AI driven. And like as a marketer, imagining all these channels are going to, it seems like, be optimized in a similar way by similar types of agents. I'm sure that's kind of how you see it going. Like, how do you think about like maintaining a continued edge, or where do you look for an edge as a marketer in like this largely kind of agentic AI world where the kind of like basic math optimizations like everyone on earth can do?
Yeah, that was kind of to my point earlier. Like, I don't know if there is going to be an edge. Like, as you, not in the next 12 months, but like 24 months, 36 months, what is your edge? It's not media buying strategy. It maybe is like creative still, but everyone has access to creative, so maybe you're just a better prompter and you can build better creative with AI. But like, I think the edge dissipates. Like, I think there's been a lot of brands who have built off of their ability to buy better media and produce better creative. I think that goes away, and I think your edge has to be your product. And it has to be the brand that you've built and the consumer trust that you've built. And like, it can't be like, oh, I have a better media buyer than you. Like, that will not work a year from now. It barely works now. So, short answer, I think the edge diminishes over the next couple of years, and you have to lean further and further into product and brand.
I kind of like that though. Like
Yeah.
it
Depends on where your edge comes from. You know, like-
yeah, I mean, I'm saying like as a consumer,
Yeah.
there is like an aspect of that maybe in like a competitive marketplace, the best product actually wins.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? It's like, oh, this is the best product at the best price. It should win. If you look at the market today, all of us know some of our competitors where that is definitely not the case.
It's true.
Right? They're like, they are beating us and they're not as good as us, and they're just, it's like cheap crap, right? And they're somehow beating us because they have really good media buyer, or they have really cheap OpEx or whatever. So there is like kind of a beauty in that simplicity that I hadn't thought about. So thanks for the question.
For sure, great question.
Yeah, quick question, specifically just for McCoy.
Oh yeah.
What's your guys' influencer mix, where you take big swings with Kendall or with the Jenners, or is it kind of 100 micro influencers? And then what drives those decisions? Is it impressions, contribution margin in the funnel? How do you guys think through
Yeah,
that?
it's changed over time. Like when we first started, it was all just product seeding with the smallest influencers. And the advantage that kind of George built on with talking with Meta is like we did get some influencers that were fairly big or well known that just came knocking on our door, and then that brought a bunch more in, and then that kind of gave us access to bigger influencers. So I think at this point, it's like we have a core percent paid versus test, and then we continue to do just gifting. And that, I don't know, that's probably hasn't changed or will change anytime soon, but the Kris Jenner is like, we took a big bet on like the same as Oprah Winfrey. It was this free, organic, Oprah's favorite things, and so we thought maybe Kris Jenner would be another, organic way to get Cozy Earth recognized. And I'll be honest, like I don't think we saw the same success anywhere near what Oprah was, but there is a lot of brands that are trying that now. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question in some way.
I
Thanks.
think we had one here.
Like you just think discounting, I know you mentioned a lot of advantages to it. I think a brand I know that doesn't do any discounting is Buck Mason.
Yeah.
So like when you hear that, it sounds like as a brand, it sounds super appealing. Like wow, yeah, just no discounting. This is my price all year round. Somehow like they decided to do that. I think like maybe Verity does very maybe one time a year sale. But like there's a lot of really pretty brands that do a lot of discounting too. So how do you think about that as a brand owner?
I think the brands you mentioned, and I don't know this for sure, but like I would look at their distribution channels. Like, how heavy are they into retail? How heavy are they into wholesale? We are like not at all into wholesale or retail, so we have the freedom to discount. But a lot of those brands probably started retail heavy or at least have become retail heavy, and so they're not able to discount at the same rate. It makes the wholesale partners like not want to do business with you, and so that's a limitation. I think if you can build a business without discounting, do it. Like that feels like the right path. But understand, like, if you're in a pinch and you need to grow the business or you need to increase your conversion rate, like, this is a lever you can pull. I think for us, we're doing a little bit of a reset right now because we are going to try to lean into a more diversified distribution strategy. And so, like, we have to reduce our reliance on discounting. And then hopefully wholesale can step in and offset the lost revenue from online, and then we're okay. But I think a lot of the brands who don't discount, they're pretty tied into wholesale.
Good insight.
Yeah, so with this focus on trying to have like a premium positioning and your product obviously being within the contemporary space, how are you driving new to brand and trial for like acquiring new customers?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
How are you driving new to brand and trial to get new customers?
Branded trial.
Like, basically, like, how do you get a new customer, knowing it's kind of an expensive product?
Oh, sorry, I'm brain dead. So what are we doing to get customers to come? We have a 100-night sleep trial for our product, so you can try it, send it back if you don't love it. And so that's something we've leaned into, but nowadays, like, every single e-commerce company has something similar. I think the honest answer is, like, it's really hard. I've seen a lot of companies like do free trials where they actually won't charge the customer until 30 days after they've purchased the product. That's something that maybe we'll explore. But I think, you know, the momentum that we have as a brand and like the desire to feel our product and experience the products gets the customer over the edge, and then they know they can return it for free if they don't love it. So.
Cool. We're at time. Is there any other, like, I thought there was one more hand raising, but okay, we're good. Thank you so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.